Gatsby here, and good news everyone, YouTube is finally letting me monetize my videos so that I can afford to craft 20-something URs in my best of one free-to-play format. On a related note, it feels like every other day I see social media posts explaining that I could play competitive Pokemon for the price of an Egg McMuffin. And while I'm not certain if this is a critique on the price of modern fast food, or a statement that despite the collectability of 4,700 variations of Charizard and Pikachu, I don't care who Nintendo sends, I'm not playing your game. When it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh, however, it's no secret that starting out, the price of decks could exceed the street value of black market non-vital organs. For the last 5 years, this is due mostly in part to the price of high-value staples, that once they enter your collection can be used at almost any deck and are unlikely to be sold or traded off. Thankfully, the Rarity Collection and the large assortment of reprint products have helped bring down the price of some staples, but once a new staple is announced, the total price spikes right back up, with the most recent example being Fuwalos playsets pushing $350 plus. And while I risk providing a hot take, I'm willing to give this a pass because I know that if I ever pull one, I'm gonna sell it. What, do you think I'm stupid? But for those who secured their playsets, they now have a generic staple that can be moved into any list, which means it's unlikely to be traded, driving the price up. For another great example of this, I'd highly suggest checking out my Flesh and Blood video, where I explain that even though cards like Bindle, Spring Tunic, and Command and Conquer have high price points, they're a single-time investment that you're able to continue to use in a variety of decks. While I wish more games could be like Pokemon in terms of accessibility through starter products providing multiple playsets of meta staples, I can find non-engine hand trap alternatives to play with while I wait for the inevitable reprint that drives the price down. But that's for non-engine. What about engine though? Things like the Wanted engine at its peak fetching around $500, or the Fiendsmith engine pushed around $400 on release, well, that's different. Engines are not as flexible as generic game pieces like hand traps, while requiring specific strategies to be considered optimal to play with. While you might play Fuwalos and Centurion, there's very little reason to be playing either of the previously mentioned engines. And it's fine for engines to be strong, but it's important to remember that they're less flexible purchases that can be rotated out of the format for any number of reasons. And that feels miserable, especially if you're trying to get cards out of sealed product. Because when it comes to sealed product, you have a few options. Core sets in Yu-Gi-Oh! Usually run about $80 to $90 a box, depending on your LGS, with the expectation of 2 secrets and 6 ultras. And deck building and side sets run about $70 to $80 with the expectation of around 3 ultras. But note how I said these are expectations. In reality, the variance with main sets could result in coming up short a secret, and side sets seeing anywhere between 2 to 4 ultras per box. Let's look at the Wanted engine. Diabell Star and Wanted are both secret rares that at the time you would want 3 copies of each. In a theoretically perfect scenario with insane luck, you purchase 3 boxes and magically hit your playset of each. Or the more likely scenario, you end up with a TG core and 1 to 2 copies of the cards you were actually looking for. Admittedly, Agov is a terrible example given that Imseti and SP drive the secrets pull through the fucking roof, but the point I'm trying to make is that you're almost always better off buying singles, which in turn drives the price up. But if you want a more recent core set example, Rage of the Abyss has been making the rounds on Twitter, and I found a post that after cracking 3 boxes, 3/4 of the total print is useless pack filler. At least you get the first ed stamp on cards that will never see play and probably serve a better purpose as box liner for your pets. But this doesn't seem like a great deal to me. In deck builder sets, it's not that much better, taking something like Wild Survivors with the Vanquish Soul archetype. The deck core attracted a $300 price tag on release due to many of the 3Fs being ultras. Or you could entertain the alternative and buy a product full of dinosaurs and burgers. Another scenario to ponder is sets like Valiant Smashers that had people interested in the Centurion archetype sandwiched between Memento and Valmonica, and the Amazing Defenders set, a box that provided absolutely nothing of value on release. But through the added benefit of hindsight, we now know that while Memento, Rescue Ace, Pearly, and Makonko did see their day in the sun, it was only after Wave 2 support, where the cards that made the strategies viable borderline looked like they were ordered by the Make-A-Wish Foundation for a small fire hydrant on life support. So feel free to go gambling, but this feels awful to be punished for purchasing sealed product, or worse, sitting with your bad investment like you're on an organ transplant waiting list, hoping they call your number. For a better version of everything I just mentioned, I implore you to go watch Monkey Fight TCG's video on the subject. He goes into much better detail with much better editing and includes a solution that I fully agree with, adopting the OCG printing model. Which brings me to the point of this video. It would be great to have the OCG rarity printing model implemented in the TCG, but I'd like to go a step further. Let's talk about something that happened recently. At New York Comic Con, we saw product lines planned for early 2025. Supreme Darkness on January 23rd, the highly anticipated Blue Eyes Structure February 7th, and what ended up being the most important thing to me, Maze of the Master, being released on February 21st. After removing the Bigfoot filter from early images, people were hyped for the arrival of what appears to be a world premiere Egyptian archetype with inspiration driven from Gravekeepers and Temple of the Kings. For me, however, let's go ahead and zoom in on this little corner, that little fellow right there. You might miss him, feels like everyone else did. What the fuck are you doing? The OCG got Duelist Pack Duelists of Brilliance May 25th, 2024, Rage of the Abyss July 27th, Crossover Breakers August 24th, Blue Eyes Structure September 7th, Supreme Darkness October 26th. Obviously, I'm biased as fuck, being one of 8 total people who were excited for Mizar. Go watch Zexal Season 2, but while I was waiting for both Tachyon and XYZ Dragon Cannon retrains, this is an actual problem. For the unaware, the Tachyon archetype was a solid competitive option on release. We're getting this 2 full core sets after when the OCG received it. That's fine though, because after the Magia reprint is announced for Maze 2, Konami will be instantly forgiven because at that point Ruxin will be able to finally pull his copy of a card valued at half my monthly mortgage. When I spoke to Sonny in August, he mentioned something that I really want people to listen to, and that's right, if you're not going to watch the video, I'm going to force you to watch it.
Another thing I like is that we are the first to get cards, which means that I have a chance to innovate myself because decks are not set in stone as opposed to being in the TCG where I would just copy the OCG, and strong decks would almost always translate.
I understand that Master Duel, the OCG, and the TCG are 3 different formats servicing 3 different audiences, but I can't help and feel that there aren't enough people pushing for this change. Historically, we've already seen printing issues change entire formats. DDD was a massive threat in the OCG, and was very popular due to being the deck of choice for the best character in Arc V. Sorry, Banana. But in the TCG, delays on printing of Lamia made the deck not even worth considering until its print in the structure deck that was immediately overshadowed by the remainder of the format. This isn't just for the sake of the TCG either, though, when you consider that in the reverse direction, early on Mist Rune looked to be an archetype of cards that service an unplayably bad mill strategy that skips battle phases, until the Germans got a hold of the deck where it suddenly became a world-class control strategy that focused on low-to-the-ground combos to out-resource the opponent. I don't even want us to all be on the same ban list. There's absolutely a justification in having split ban lists, and I'm willing to bet that there are people in each format who want to keep their lists separate for their own reasons, and honestly I prefer it that way. But when it comes to the card pool, what's the point of putting the TCG so far behind the OCG? In Master Duel, I kind of get it, needing to update the electronic client to prep the system with new mechanics, but cards like Promethean Princess and Halloween-themed cards that we're going to be getting later this month show us that maybe even Master Duel needs to get up to speed. And for those of you who think it's too much product in too short of a time, look at the Chinese region that had a much larger product gap already closed, allowing them to play with the current format OCG. It is possible. But here's the point in the video that you can clip once I'm proven wrong around this time next month. I think the Rizal archetype will be pretty good, but less good in a format less concerned with Max C 1 and 2. But in the TCG format, it loses out on what is objectively its best search spell, 7th Tachyon. And who's to say this doesn't negatively impact the sale of crossover breakers? I mean, it probably won't because of chimps like me who yearn for the mines, but it is something that Konami has to start considering. At the moment, the format appears to be wide, and I would like to think that Tachyon would have fit great into it. But now there's a chance Tachyon will be dated on release, and it won't make the cut once it arrives late February. Made worse with the knowledge that the Blue Eyes Structure deck will come out right before it. Maybe this video is about late prints, and maybe it's about the acceleration of the power curve. Whatever ends up happening though, at least I know that by the time January comes around, I will have perfected my response to the question, what set did the new Speedroid stuff come in?
These nuts. Ha! Got him!